This is Create the Next from ProCFO Partners, where every week we explore strategies and ideas for financial management and growth to help today's businesses put their financial picture in context.
Welcome back to Create the Next. I am Chris Bintliff. I'm joined today by Dan Bartley. And Dan, it's been a minute since we've been together. And last time we talked, we had a really great conversation about, some things to think about when buying or selling, that transactional aspect of business. And a lot has happened since then. A lot of different industries have had some ebbs and flows. We've seen some new and interesting things happen in construction. We've seen some crazy things happen in manufacturing. We've seen lots of companies pivot, whatever. What are you seeing out there? How's it going in the world of transactions in businesses that are buying and selling? What's the mood? What's the trend? What's the attitude? What's your perspective out there?
Well, in general, one of the things that has happened that's actually had the most significant on the market is just the amount of money that's available. Literally trillions of dollars are now sitting on the sidelines needing to get put to work. So what it did is it drove up values in a big way. It drove up multiples, and the need for transactions from the capital side is still strong, very strong. For me personally, it was kind of slow on the transaction side. I've been very busy, but kind of slow on the transactional side. But I had two cross my desk recently that were very interesting because on their face, I was like, hey, good companies, good opportunities. They show profit, good consistent revenue stream. I was like, okay, I'll get both of these done. But then I scratched the surface and it turns out I couldn't verify the financial information at all. And it turns out neither one of them had financial statements. One of them just had numbers and said, we don't have a balance sheet. And the other one said, we have two sets of financial statements because we run one set of financial statements for expenses and one set of financial statements for revenue. And I was like, well, those aren't financial statements. So this is going to be tough to get done. But what I'm hearing is that actually, it's kind of what is getting out there. People are they're hearing that there's such availability of money and to sell the business that they think they can just provide, hey, I make $1 million, let's get it done. And it's never going to work that way.
Wow. So this gets back to the nuts and bolts of reporting.
Yep.
The value of reporting. So where is I don't know if failure is the right word, but where is the dysfunction there? Is that, do we just need CFOs to be doing a better job? Do not enough companies lean on their CFO to do the right thing? Are there too many controllers instead of CFOs? Like where's the dysfunction, the breakdown in some of that?
It's all of the above, but part of it is the fact that a lot of companies, privately held, 30 years, I'm sure you've seen this many times, have gone along so nicely because they make money. They have money in the bank account. And therefore, financial statements, well, I know I have money in the bank account. It's not so important. And it doesn't become crucial until you go into a transaction. Then all of a sudden it does matter. And at that point, it raises the questions of how come you haven't been using financial statements all these years? So whose fault is that? It's not really anyone's fault. The accountant, I find, the tax advisors at some point should have raised their hand and said, it would be really helpful to have financial statements, not just for a transaction, but to analyze your business. Because in the instances I just described, I guarantee if I was in there helping them on a monthly basis with financial statements, they'd be making more money. There's no doubt in my mind. They'd be more efficient and do things better, but they don't realize that until the time comes.
That is fascinating to me. We've talked a lot in this podcast about how important it is to sort of behave like you're going to sell your business anytime. Just always have your ducks in a row. And that is still sort of the most elementary piece of, there's so many dominoes that fall, both or that rise up. As you pointed out, you could easily be making more money if you just knew more about what was going on. When it comes to valuation, I imagine there's kind of two pieces to this. Tell me if you agree or how you respond to this. One is if I'm a buyer and I don't have that information, then obviously it's harder for me to make this deal or make this deal quickly or to know what this deal should consist of. But also, I don't know, am I making some judgments about the thing I'm going to buy? Well, hold on. What else have you not been doing for 30 years? Like what else, if I get in there, am I going to find is kind of crazy? This is not what I expected. Do you find that those two components, are there others that sort of, that's symptomatic, this lack of attention to that aspect can be symptomatic of other things going on inside of a business?
For sure. But what's interesting, Chris, as you mentioned that, I wear both hats, as you know. So as a seller, I'm like, this isn't good. As a buyer, I'm like, wow, this is great, because I can still do the deal. Okay. I can look at your bank statements and verify on my own what cash is happening. But what I can't do is, at that point, I don't know the fight. I'm not going to take the risk. I'm not going to take the chance that still something's wrong. I still don't have enough information. So I'm going to drastically discount your value. And I'm also going to hedge it, where I'm going to say, well, I'll pay you over time. I'll pay you based on what actually happens. So, and those valuations are dramatically different. They could be up to 50% of your business, because I'm not going to take the risk. And if you want to straighten your situation out, get your financial statements up to date and come back to me, we can talk about it. But as it stands now, I'll do it, but this is the only way I'll do it.
So if I am, this family business, and for 50 years I've been rolling along and it's been enough, I mean, what's the most basic advice that you have for me? What are the basic and financial, because there's some reason I haven't been doing this. And maybe at this point I feel it's unnecessary, unimportant, or I'm even intimidated, or I don't know where to start. Let's remove a little bit of mystery. What's your professional guidance on, look, just start here, do this first thing, and let's build off of that?
Yeah, it just so happens I'm working on one at this very moment, and I'm going to get back to it right after this call. The first thing I'm doing is I'm digging into what they have. I'm like, okay, give me everything you have so I can figure out what you need. And so what I do is I dig into their financial statements, which are in various conditions. Some of them are just don't make any sense. Some of them are, hey, that's not bad. I can work with that. Either way, I'm going to get back to them and say, okay, let's make this better. Let's make this better so that an acquiring company is looking at you is going to say, yeah, that's high quality. I understand it. You have all your schedules correct. And that's where I'm going to guide them towards.
It's great advice, Dan. Let's talk a little bit about, I don't know, what else is underneath there. You and I were talking earlier, and I had some experience where a company that was buying another company, I don't know, there was some tension that emerged after the buy that was around redundant employees, and there were some employee morale issues, but there were also some real logistical things that maybe you don't think of but become really important after you think about it. And I wonder what you think about some of those things. What are some of the systems that we should be thinking about differently or better? And what are some of the people dynamics in a transaction, one way or the other, that maybe we take for granted or we don't think through enough that should be part of our considerations in a transaction?
Yeah, Chris, those are both very crucial. Let's start with the personnel issue, because it's kind of interesting. I put employees into 3 different categories in a transactional way. One is the selling staff, the people who actually have direct contact with your customers. The technical staff, that's your IT group, people who are actually running the data behind the scenes. And then your admin people, the people who make the trains run correctly day to day. And on both sides of the equation, buyer and seller, I want to make sure these people are lined up with a potential transaction, because they're going to be important and they're going to be crucial to what happens after the transaction, and it can make or break a deal. So you need to line those people up with, find out, as if you're an acquirer, you have to identify who these people are, get to know them, and find out what makes them tick, and see if you can find some way to inspire them to be part of the team going forward. And you can do that with a number of ways. You can have employment contracts that also protects you, because you can include language about confidentiality, non-solicitation, things like that. But you also can get happy employees out of it. If that doesn't happen, I have seen situations that become pretty disastrous, where a culture fit. So a company is acquired, and all the employees were used to functioning a certain way, and the company that acquires them does it completely opposite. What do you know? All of a sudden, there's this thing called accountability that no one was used to. And then you get unhappy employees, you get dissension, and it just makes a bad work environment. And again, it hurts the efficiency of the business going forward. Those are all very common things that happen if you don't look out for them when you're walking in.
I love that you've got these 3 compartments, and for me, each one is worth unpacking a little bit. From a sales perspective, as you point out, sort of culturally, if my VP of sales is super relaxed and we've got kind of a easygoing culture and we've got a few KPIs that are important to us, but as you pointed out earlier, we've been rolling along making sales for 30 years, we're doing okay. But the buying company has a really aggressive or assertive or organized. If I don't have some way pre-sale to connect expectations on that, holy smokes, you're going to see a whole fleet of people either jump ship, or the morale will plummet, or there'll be a lot of dissension, a lot of dysfunction, a lot of attitude issues. IT folks, maybe you've got disparate systems. Maybe you've got completely different, ERPs. Maybe you've got all kinds of things that are separate. And then admin, they really deal with it all. They're on the business end of all this stuff, and they feel like, well, this is all going to affect us the most, but we weren't even asked.
Yep.
There's some proactive ways pre-sale that I don't know that any of these things can be worked out in a realistic way. You can't uncover every single thing, but what do you think should be happening that sometimes doesn't happen?
You can pick up that first piece pretty easily. I actually am a certified instructor in something called Myers-Briggs psychological type.
Sure.
So people are different, and so what you can do is have your personnel folks or the people involved in the transaction meet with these people and have a thorough conversation. Find out what they're like, what makes them tick, what makes them not tick. How do they do their job now? Because you're precisely right. If you have a salesman who just is no accountability, just does his thing, but he's a great salesman, the transactions get closed. The acquiring company likes day-to-day accountability. Who'd you talk to today? Who'd you call? Where's your next step? What's your follow-up? Here's your form. It won't work. They won't be happy. And boy, you don't want an unhappy salesman because that comes across to the customer. But you also have the danger, that's a very real legal danger. And I did have this happen many years ago with a lead salesman wasn't involved in the transaction and just started taking all the accounts right after the deal was done. And it caused legal problems and legal issues you could just imagine. But that's for the other reasons that we talked about. You need to lock these things down in advance or they will hurt you. They will hurt you. I also had a situation where we had an IT guy, nice enough guy, but he was there for 30 years or 20 years, whatever it is. And it was his baby and his show. And he refused to let the acquiring company's IT team come in. And he never fully documented. It was unbelievable. He never fully documented everything. It was all in his head. And he just refused. We had to threaten him with legal action, say what you've effectively done is you're stealing information that you don't own from the company because you're not willing to disclose it. And that almost killed the deal. They finally worked it out. But yeah, these personnel issues are really, they're crucial. They can make or break a transaction.
And that's a great illustration. How many companies have one or a key person in a business unit or department that seems to have all the knowledge in their head? They've been here a long time. They know how it goes. And none of it is systematized. None of it is, sort of franchised so that somebody else could pick it up and somebody else could run with it. What about systems? What are some things that I should be thinking about or keeping in mind when it's kind of peeling back the hood on some of those things that just make an organization mechanically operate? Yeah,
well, the first place I'm going to go, and that's to the financial statements. If I have two separate,
all comes around. It's all full circle.
That's my world.
Yep.
It comes back to it's very common. You have two separate sets of financial reporting systems out there. If it's the same system but two sets of financial information, that's work, but it's kind of easy to do. If they're two entirely different financial reporting systems, you have to figure out a way to merge them. Or you're going to have to pick one and run with that. Or all of a sudden, before you know it, months go by and you have no financial reporting and somebody's saying, how are we doing? And you don't know. It happens. It happens often. You also have the whole communication aspect, both internal and external. How do people talk to our people? How do people talk to the people in one company? How do the customers talk to the people in the other? How do they get in touch with them? You start to break that down and it's not working. You get unhappy customers, you get unhappy employees again. And so communication is absolutely key. You need to work that out in advance. You got to be ready when you pull the switch to make it happen. Otherwise it's going to be glitchy and it's going to cause problems.
What a great point. I mean, some of us are operating in Slack. Some of us are strictly email. Some of us are sending casual texts that, when there's no appropriate sort of track record of that can get an organization in trouble. And maybe there's somebody else that's going to come in and they're going to have a completely different way of doing things. And to know that stuff ahead of time is crucial. So Dan, if I sum it all up, one is you have your ducks in a row. Your reporting has to be on point. If it's not, you got to get there, and your CFO or Dan or ProCFO Partners should give you a hand. I should also be having a good understanding of the personalities that are going to be connecting inside of my organization and some of the expectations and even the responsibilities and where that will be. And then when it comes to the systems, I have to have a good sense of communications, and it comes back to reporting. I have to be able to know what I'm doing. Does that kind of get us to where we talked about some of these things today?
Yeah, you said it all very well. And, it can be, I actually enjoy doing all that because you meet all the different personalities. You look at all the systems, you see what's in the financial reporting system, and it's all doable. All of it can be worked out. You just have to take the time to do it and to do it right. And ownership on both sides will appreciate it. And one of my personal goals always is for any transaction I'm involved in, that I want to be able to have either side call me 2 years from now and say, "Oh yeah, Dan, thank you. It worked out."
What a great perspective, and what a great way to sort of buttonhole this whole thing, because you're right, it can feel intimidating or even punitive sometimes, and we would never want that. You're right. This is all doable, and it's great to have somebody who loves this stuff on your team, because so many of us don't, but somebody out there, I love digging in and helping out and making this go, and what a great perspective to have. Dan Bartley from ProCFO Partners, just a gem. Thanks, Dan, for spending some time with us. Can't wait for our next conversation. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, buddy.
Me neither. Good to talk to you, Chris, always.
All right, take care.
Take care, bye.
Thanks for watching, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one today. Visit ProCFOPartners.com for more strategies and ideas for financial management and growth to help you put your business's financial picture in context.